So,
You know what? Actually, I forgot one last question, one last topic, because we've talked about this previously. Is AI?
oh yeah.
Artificial intelligence, which we briefly talked about a project using artificial intelligence as a narrative tool.
Right.
How do you feel about AI as a tool in narrative design or in writing or in the creative process? Like, I mean, I guess there's a couple ways as a tool, but also as a game design mechanic, like characters driven by LLMs somehow to have conversations. How do you feel about that?
It's a very complicated question, I think. Partially because, and I know you understand this, so you're being careful about the way you're saying it.
Well, I mean, I'm not being careful.
Oh no, like specific. You're being specific. Whereas I think a lot of people say AI very generally,
Right?
And they don't. They don't know what it means. You obviously you do. AI has like always been a part of games. So,
Sure.
there's always been generative elements to games.
Well, I guess specifically though, LLMs, like
Right.
that's a new technology.
So yeah, so
Yes.
having any generative element being a part of games for a long time, I think makes it hard to be opposed fundamentally to something like a large language
Right.
model. From a writing standpoint, it poses so many tricky challenges, and the thing you and I talked about was a really interesting way to approach those challenges. And I'm not fundamentally opposed to large language models being used in a gaming context, but I think that it would need to be heavily curated and heavily siloed by the people who are making the game. Otherwise, the possibility of it just becoming sort of narrative gray goo is too great, if that makes sense.
Well, I kind of have that problem with procedurally generated games in general, and there's a great audience for these games, but like a game like No Man's Sky, which obviously is insanely successful, didn't click with me just because I know that it's using an algorithm to generate each planet. Every time I show it, it's like, oh, it's a bunch of shapes smashed together, and it doesn't mean anything. And so I think
things feel empty after a while.
Yeah, and if you're having a conversation with an LLM, I read an article too, which one of the problems people get addicted to LLMs to a certain degree is because LLMs conversations never end. They don't have to go to the bathroom. They don't get tired. They don't get sick of talking to you. And so it just goes on and on and on and on and on.
Sounds like my nightmare. Like I just want to.
Yeah, so it's like there's no. I guess you could build this into the game mechanic, but it's just kind of like if you have an infinite conversation with the character in a game, I think at some point the game still needs to. I guess at some point you need to play along with the game. Like you're not trying to break the game, you're trying to play the game. But if the game allows you to do anything conversationally, you're really playing it.
One of my biggest pushes in narrative design for the Quarry, for Until Dawn, for all the games in between, I didn't successfully push this through every time, but it was always the approach. Even on Until Dawn, it seemed to me that there's this possibility that you can play through the game and feel deeply unsatisfied because you don't have a sense of narrative meaning. Because it's not like playing a round of Call of Duty. It's not like playing, Rocket League or something. It's, you're not trying to win. You're trying to experience. And if we're, this might be different in the future, but we have all been trained to expect something from stories.
Yeah.
To expect something from narratives, to expect a meaning. And that doesn't mean like a moral of the story or a lesson, but to expect coming to a place where we get a certain amount of satisfaction in the closure, payoff, or of development or of like, growth. And so I was trying to and we talked about the difference between narrative design and writing, and this is where fundamentally I think they just bleed directly into each other. One of the things I really wanted to do was, and I still want to do this whenever I work on anything, is find thematic through lines that can be presented in the beginning and at the end, so that no matter what happens in the game, no matter what the player's experiences or choices are, they're able to kind of compare their growth from beginning to end and find a sense of narrative accomplishment. And it's hard to give good examples of this, but depending on the theme of the game, like there was one game we did called Hidden Agenda, which was a police procedural, and I think I've mentioned to you before, the game was truncated from what was originally written. So it's a weird example because this doesn't exist in the final version of the game, but in our writing of the game, we wanted to present some ideas at the beginning about trust and about loyalty. And depending on how you play the game, you could like fuck over your partner. You could you could be really good to your partner. They could save your life later, and then the character might say that same same line about loyalty that they say at the beginning at the end, and it has wildly different meaning depending on how you played. And I think the problem with something that is narratively entirely procedurally generated is that, and because it's endless, you don't have that opportunity for a very curated sense of closure and payoff. It's a very long-winded way to say that. I think it's possible, but it's something I haven't seen done yet. So I think it'd be really interesting to see that play out and see if that is possible. Yeah,
I also think there needs to be a little bit of a technological advancement. My guess is, my prediction, you hear it here first, I think the next generation of consoles, they're going to have an extra GPU in them to run LLMs locally. I just think, like, if you look at the latest NVIDIA GPUs, like their 50 series, they basically were talking about how they have a lot of hardware on there now to run LLMs locally. And I think that, like, the next generation of consoles are going to have some form of that so that you could do this kind of thing. It will be interesting because it'll be the first console hardware generation where the technology allows you to do something new with gameplay versus just graphics.
Yeah.
I think it would be kind of interesting. That's my theory. I think that's how it's going to work because it's too hot of an area right now, and I feel like, I don't know, you just need to slap an extra GPU or something on your hardware, maybe, see what developers can do with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what worries me about that is the implementation. It's like a step backwards in some ways, cutting out the writer like that, which I think is really unfortunate. But it doesn't have to be, but it like...
Well, I mean, it's you're going to have to become a narrative designer. You know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to be a writer, but part of the writing is prompting, but also bridging. I bet you'll probably have to bridge the AI-generated dialogue to scripted dialogue and back, because, like you said, I mean, it's just going to be a bunch of meaningless fortune cookie babble. Like, just like it's just not going to. It's just going to be so broad if you're just talking to an LLM.
Yeah, I mean, like there's a very bird's eye view comparison you could make between, dialogue that's sort of like randomly selected from a pool, or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's something I haven't fully wrapped my head around, honestly.
Yeah, I don't think many people have. I've seen a few games that try this. I can't remember the name of it. There's a game called what's that called? It's called like Suck Up or something. It's like a vampire game where you're basically trying to get invited into houses so you could kill the. It's pretty funny. I wish I could remember the name of the game, but you basically walk around and you pick up stuff that you see in the city. It's like a cartoony kind of 3D game. You're like a kid, and you pick up a bunch of hats and stuff, and then you knock on people's doors, and then you try to make up a story like, "Oh, my football team left me stranded here. Can I come in and use the phone?" And you try to convince the guy to let you in the house so that you can kill them because you're a vampire.
Yeah.
And you're having an LLM conversation, and it's actually pretty clever and pretty funny. But I also wonder if it's using. I don't know how it works. I don't know if it's using like OpenAI. It's actually quite expensive to use use the API calls, which is why I think you're not going to see a lot of this experimentation until you can run that stuff locally.
Right, exactly. And and that's there's a whole host of other reasons why it's not a good idea to do it.
Yeah.
Open like that. It's really fascinating, and I like anything else. I think there's potential to it, and also potential to coexist with traditional writing.
Sure.
Which I think is really important. I mean, like, I have a very fundamental thing personally, and I think I'm not alone in feeling this way, but I go to art to see a reflection of the person who made it and their experience. So when I see things that are entirely AI, they feel very empty to me. So I like, but in the early days of AI, we were talking about this before with Midjourney, and when I was messing around with it, and other people were finding ways to push it into these sort of like monstrosities and things that are almost impossible to do now on image generators. You would see a reflection of the artist, and meaning the person who is trying to create the stuff through the computer, versus just a bland like prompt illustration.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. My opinions and feelings about AI, I think like a lot of people are just constantly evolving and complex.
Yeah. Yeah.